I am on to you, ArenaNet. I know what you're doing behind the scenes, I know what you're planning, and I have figured it out, and I'm going to reveal everything today to whoever the fuck clicks on this video. So, just recently, Guild Wars 2 announced its new expansion, Visions of Eternity, and in that expansion reveal trailer, they showed off this little guy. But there's a lot more going on with just this image than I think most players, even myself, were originally aware of. This little guy, of course, being the reveal for the new Elementalist Specialization that previously was only being teased with this image. It's got me thinking a lot about what this Elementalist Specialization could actually be. Now, I did do a live stream where I talked about this with some viewers just last night. When the trailer went live, I spent a bunch of time researching and theorizing, and today we're going to share with you what I found out. Learning about this was a roller coaster for me. Like, seriously, I was going on some crazy ups and downs. I went down an insane rabbit hole. It was really exciting. So I'm going to bring you guys along the journey in the same order that I came to these conclusions, and we'll see if you guys think that I'm just schizophrenic or if I'm actually onto something. Twitch chat seemed to be, well, actually mostly YouTube chat, multi-streams. Anyways, they seem to agree with me, but let's see what a broader audience thinks. So, starting off, we've got a fox made of fire. The browser, there are Pokemon that are firefoxes, Power World has firefoxes. Why are foxes always associated with fire? Well, as soon as I saw this thing, my first thought was this guy. This little dude. This is the Tuulikettu. The Tuulikettu is a mythological creature from Finnish folklore. It was a fox that was on fire, and the fire coming off of its tail was believed to be the source of the Northern Lights. So, naturally, I'm led to believe that ArenaNet is taking inspiration from the Finnish Tuulikettu for our new specialization. Now, Guild Wars has represented Elementalist solely through Flame just before, with its core base, I guess not specialization, but just default core Elementalist. It's likely that designers thought they couldn't represent the entirety of the Elementalist class with one image, so instead they just drew the most iconic one, Fire, even though that fireball has nothing to do with the other three attunements. So, with that thought, maybe they thought for this new specialization the same is true. They couldn't represent the entire specialization through one little icon. So maybe this fireball, this little firefox, is only the fire element, and that there are other creatures for the other three attunements. So, let's run with that idea. They've chosen a fox for fire because foxes are one of the most tightly associated mythical creatures to fire. Sure, there's the phoenix, but we already have the phoenix, and the phoenix is referencing Eastern mythology with the catalyst. Because, don't forget, this would not be the first time that Elementalist has used mythical creatures to represent the four attunements in one of its elite specializations. With Catalyst, we had the four auspicious beasts, four lords. They have a bunch of names, but just look up like four auspices, or however you pronounce that, of Chinese mythology, and you're going to find them everywhere. It's one of the most popular pieces of Chinese mythology. So my thought is that this time we're going to try to avoid Asian mythology, which is why I don't think this is based on the Kitsune at all. I think this is purely the Tuulikettu. So, let's go over some examples of other creatures that are completely relevant to one specific element and might go in line with our little fox friend here. And I can think of nothing more apt than the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird, maybe you've heard of it. I can't zoom this image in. Interesting. Anyways, this is one of, if not the most iconic mythological creatures from Native American folktales. This creature was believed to basically do exactly what it's doing in this image, actually. It was a giant bird that would fly in and bring with it the thunder, the lightning, the clouds, the rain. The Thunderbird was the storm incarnate, and people both feared it because lightning is kind of incredibly destructive and violent and a power that no man, especially hundreds of years ago, could ever imagine to contend with. It also brought the rain. So while it's scary, it was also revered, because with no rain, there's no plants. No plants means no people, everyone would die, everything would die. So the Thunderbird was an insanely important piece of the mythology, and I guess you could say religion, kind of, even though I don't think it really counts as religion, of the indigenous peoples of North America. So, my bet here is that if we're going to choose the Tualaketu to represent the fire element, what if we had an eagle, like a little purple-ish, bluish eagle, designed after the Thunderbird, representing the air attunement? Just as iconic, very much a creature relatively the same size as the fox too, even. Because, I mean, the fox isn't scaled down, right? It's just a fox. So maybe we want creatures that are also vaguely the same size, could float around the player. I think the Thunderbird's a perfect fit. And as a matter of fact, I'm so confident, I would be willing to bet a stupid amount of money on the idea of, if we are getting multiple creatures, an eagle or a falcon representing the air attunement. And what about the other two? Well, the other two were a lot harder to find. And for the water attunement, I present to you the horrifying abomination that is the Dobarchu, which I'm definitely pronouncing wrong because I think it's Gaelic. It translates roughly into like waterhound or water dog. It was like a horse-sized this thing that was incredibly violent. It was literally cited on Wikipedia as being the enemy of all. Maybe seems like a bit of a stretch here, but I promise there's a reason that I chose this stupid creature. Because, as you might notice, it doesn't look like a dog at all. No dog looks like that. This thing is actually a giant otter, and one of its other names is actually King Otter. It is just a huge fucking otter from Irish mythology. The idea of a giant horse-sized otter that murders everything and everyone nearby maybe isn't the best justification for the otter, but I didn't quite stop there. I wanted to find more examples of otters being represented in Celtic folklore as creatures, or not just Celtic, but any folklore, as some kind of mythological creature, something magical and special that might be enough to associate them with the water element and maybe make them a choice ArenaNet would have looked at when designing this new specialization. And I managed to find this line right here, citing, quote, "In Celtic and other folklore, the otter is often characterized as a friendly and helpful creature, and is given the name water dog, like this fucker. Alluding to these qualities, in the Irish story, The Voyage of Maelduin, otters on the island of Otter, yes, it is the island of Otter and it has otters on it, shocker, bring the sailors salmon to eat, and the voyage of Brendan tells of how an otter performed this service for a hermit, even collecting firewood for him. St. Cuthbert is the patron saint of otters, and after standing waist-deep in the North Sea during his nightly prayer vigils, 2 otters would come and warm his feet with their breath and dry them with their fur. If nothing else, this is definitely pushing the otters into more of a benevolent or altruistic identity. And I did have a little bit more here on this website as well, romanbritain.co.uk, the Celts and Celtic life, Celtic religion, animals and Celtic mythology. Surely this is a good resource, right? This cites here that these animals were considered very magical by the Celts. During the voyages of Maelduin, Brendan, and others, as we just talked about, these traveling Celts were met by helpful otters. The otter's a strong protector who helps with gaining wisdom, finding inner treasures or valuable talents, faithfulness, and the ability to recover from any crisis. Enjoy life instead of just enduring it. I don't know about you, but when we ignore how violent and hated that thing was, all of the otters that aren't the size of a horse seem to be well beloved and considered to be magical and mythological. I would be willing to bet, especially considering, I mean, let's just be real for a second. An otter, a little blue otter guy in the same art style as this would go so fucking hard. I'm willing to bet that ArenaNet is going to choose an otter for the water attunement to go alongside this fire fox and the potential of a lightning eagle. Now, for our last of the 4 creatures, before things start to get really off the rails, because stay with me here, this gets stupid. this gets really insane. I did say we'd come back to some little details here later. It's gonna get weird. We have one last creature to look at, and that is the badger. Now, the badger, I don't even think I have an image for a badger. Let's just Google magic badger. I didn't consider that it would just give me Bloomburrow cards. Huh. Well then. There we go. Visual aid. Be stimulated by the bog badger. Right. So, why badgers? Well, when trying to find a creature closely associated to the element of earth, or stone, or rock, something hardy and durable in mythology, as you might expect, a creature of that nature is usually fucking huge, or it's a turtle. I did maybe potentially also consider the world turtle, you know, this thing, but the world turtle, to my knowledge, is like an actual turtle. It's not a tortoise, which is an amphibious creature. It would be a little weird to represent the earth element through a sea creature. I mean, I suppose fire being represented through a fox is just as strange, but it just felt a little weird to me. Elephants were actually another common one, but they're just too big. I mean, it would look a little ridiculous to have this get replaced by a whole-ass elephant, or for you to have a normal-sized fox, a normal-sized otter, a normal-sized bird, and then a tiny, tiny elephant floating around you. It could be funny, but I just don't think that's the vibe they're going for. So my bet is on the badger. Now, most stories about badgers in mythology are less than kind to the badger. They have this shape-shifting ability where they transform into typically attractive young women and then use this power to fuck with people in the most heinous and horrifying of ways, things you would typically only read about on like 4chan. Some stories included a badger disguising as a hunter's wife, then killing the hunter's wife, then cooking her into a stew, then feeding her to the hunter, and then a hare shows up, and then the hare saves the day by setting the badger on fire. I don't fucking know, man. If you know the Typhlosion story from the big Pokemon leak that happened, that is based on the mythological representations of badgers. They're not usually shown to be anything other than terrible, evil shapeshifters. But there's even an instance where one turns into a horse's asshole to fuck with someone, actually. Side note. But it turns out that the Celts, we're going to the Celts a lot today, the Celts actually were a little bit more friendly to the badgers sometimes. This animal is unyielding in the face of danger and is noted for its tenacity and courage. This immediately, pretty spot on for what you'd want for your Earth attunement, the tank attunement. Big, bulky defense, doesn't back down, protective. In the Welsh tale of Pwll's courting of Rhiannon, a badger is mentioned as a guide during dreaming. The badger will teach you to fight for your rights and defend your spiritual ideas. I feel like this is a perfect representation of the Earth attunement via a little creature who's vaguely mythical, not exactly the most mythical, but close enough. They're appearing in dreams, they're teaching you, like, alpha male tutorials, but that's close enough, right? Unfortunately, I really couldn't find a whole lot else, and this story specifically is the kindest representation I could find of a badger in folklore. Now, badgers in real life are just really aggressive, protective creatures too, so they've also got that going on. I could be willing to budge on the earth creature not being a badger. If you guys have any good ideas, I'd love to hear them, but for now, that's what I'm going with. Badger for the earth element. So, to go back over our little list, we have the Tulakettu representing the fire element, which is already functionally confirmed. We have the Thunderbird representing the air attunement of Native American folklore. We have the kind of Dobarchu, but also kind of not really the Dobarchu, just fucking otters, magic otters, representing the water element from not just Celtic, but also indigenous Native American folklore as well, as they were said to protect streams and make sure the streams actually functioned, and they even were called water dogs in their tongue as well. Everyone calls them water dogs, apparently. For the earth attunement, either the fucking world turtle, which I highly doubt, or the bog badger. So there's my idea for what the 4 attunements could be. There's one thing that's had me hung up the entire time that doesn't make any fucking sense. And when I found this out, it changed the whole thing for me and sent me down a completely new rabbit hole. So, I originally said that this is the Tulakettu. But it has what appears to be Celtic knotworks on it. You can see it all over its body. And it definitely checks out. Looks exactly like actual historical Celtic knotworks. But that doesn't make any sense. Because if that's Celtic knotwork, then how is this the Tuli Ketsu? Because the Tuli Ketsu is not Celtic at all, he's Finnish. So why would ArenaNet take a Finnish mythos and then cover it in Celtic knotwork? This is where shit gets weird and it gets confusing, but it is so incredibly cool. So I learned just tonight about something called Satyr. So the practice of Satyr is believed to be a form of magic which is related to both the telling and the shaping of the future, connected to the Old Norse religion. This on its own doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How does that relate to this dog, and how does that justify this dog's existence? Well, the Folgia. You see, people ideally couldn't see their own Folgia, but everybody had one. The idea is it was like an animal whose traits reflected yours, and from the moment of your birth, it would come into existence and shadow you. You wouldn't be able to see it because it was a spirit, but some people could. Typically, if they could see their spirit, their Folgia, it meant they were about to die. Because this creature would lead them in their life oftentimes before a big moment happens, and that kind of climaxes with leading you on to your final moment. But the Satyr is expressed to bring about these trances through like specific rhythms and rituals and such with big groups of people even. They set themselves into a spiritual trance wherein they are said to be able to see spirits that are described, though not explicitly stated to be, very similar to the Folgia. Now here in the Wikipedia page, you'll see the word Folgia means to accompany. The term Folgia is also translated into English as fetch, a similar being from Irish folklore. This is tying the Celtic inspirations in with the Norse. Then I also found this page. This is the first place I found the fetches being mentioned. The fetches seem to just be a more modernized version of the Folgia, and let me read this because it really ties together the whole idea. In Anglo-Saxon and later English superstitions, an animal Folgia became known as a fetch. Whether this was originally the same creature that appears in Icelandic literature, or whether this is a similar concept, is hard to tell. A fetch in the British witchcraft tradition is an animal spirit or living animal that would allow its owner to travel with it or send it on errands for magical workings or spirit travel. It is more common for us to see the witch's fetch depicted as a familiar, which, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely seeing this creature as a familiar. A physical animal that aids the practitioner in her works. In modern reconstructed heathen spirituality, a Folgia can be seen as an attendant female spirit or animal, which may visit you in dreams or appear if you are practicing Satyr, trance working, or going on a spirit journey. People sometimes feel that their Folgia has run on ahead of them when traveling in a physical sense. Caution would be advised for the curious who wish to discover these beings. Their powers are well documented in the Icelandic sagas, telling how they may bestow hamingja? I still don't know how to pronounce that. I should have looked it up. Anyways, or luck upon those who they attend, even helping a person to shape their fate. If you displease them, they can leave you, or the benefits they bring could be reversed. This might actually be touching on the exact mythology that ArenaNet was looking at when they made this new specialization. Now, the stream I originally made, where I came up with this theory, shortly thereafter, ArenaNet revealed the name of the new specialization. This is the Evoker specialization. Evoker doesn't necessarily contradict any of what we've said here, and if anything else, the fact that the Evoker word has nothing to do with foxes only strengthens the possibility that this is just one of 4 summons. And if this is just one of 4 summons, and there are in fact 3 others, well, we've just given some really good ideas and potential for them being the Thunderbird, the Water Dog, and some fuck-ass badger. And we've given a valid reason as to why these creatures, who should have nothing to do with Norse mythology, are covered in Norse, or possibly Celtic, knotwork. Because, of course, the Satyr and the Folgia are entirely Norse mythology and religion. So, that right there is my bet, that is my guess, that we are going to find that this is based entirely on a elementalist who has figured out how to practice the Guild Wars lore version of satyr trance working. And through doing this, they are able to see and interact with these Folja-like creatures. We might get some more lore on them, and if that lore is at all Norse-inspired or related to the idea of a fetch or a Folja, not trying to say it, but I called it. So, there you go. I think ArenaNet based the new Evoker specialization on satyrs and Folja of, what is it, how many years ago was this? Of Old Norse mythology. There you go. Just whenever the fuck Old Norse mythology took place. I don't know. I saw people arguing about that actually recently, so that's beyond me. I'm not a historian, I'm just a fucking nerd. There you go. If you think this is a likely possibility, go ahead, leave a comment, let me know what you think. This video is already, like, entirely too long, so thank you for watching if you did, and, fuck, in about a week we're gonna find out if there is an otter, an eagle, and a badger, and we'll get to maybe do a little bit more investigation onto whether the new skills indicate that this thing is based on trance working, on the shamanistic traits of the satyr and Folja relationship. Well, with that, I've been Serv. I thank you very kindly for watching, and I'm currently trying to hit 1,000 subs on my channel here. It's been very fun, and I hope if you guys enjoy the content, you'd be willing to leave a sub and a like, a comment, all that fun stuff. I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you kindly for watching, and fare thee well.